The 68 after dark, although we're going a little early tonight, so I don't even know if we could call it after dark. Maybe it's after sunset, depending on where you are. My name is Greg Waddell. We got Coach Steve Prohm with me tonight, and we got player turned coach turned analyst, T.O. What a star-studded crew. Fellas, how we doing tonight?
Doing good, Greg, man. Thanks for having us on tonight.
Hey, I'm glad I'm here for your first time, Greg. It's always good to be there with your friends for your first time, for emotional support, among other things. So congratulations and you're welcome.
You know, it's how I always dreamed it, T.O. All of my first times in life, I picture your face smiling, just staring at me from afar. So it's great to be here. Fellas, let's jump right in. Let's jump.
Jeff and Rob, man, you got big shoes to fill tonight now.
Oh, it's tough. I feel comfortable with you two on the show. You know, I can just hand you the ball. I can stand in the corner like I do in my playing career. That's what I did. Give the ball to the good players and watch them go to work. Let's start with the most exciting game of this weekend, though, and that would be Creighton's big win at Marquette, double overtime game. We have a special guest who should be joining the show just in a few moments, but man, I was watching this game. I flipped back and forth to it throughout. And by the time they hit OT, I was locked in. I'm like, I got to watch every single second of this. Screw the other games. I was flipping back and forth too. This thing was back and forth. I thought Creighton had it. And then I thought they had let it slip. But that team just did not go away. Ultimately, they pull away with a 75-69 win. Coach, let's go to you. What'd you make of this game?
Man, terrific win for Creighton. Obviously, a game that was all over, ton of emotions, up 17 in the second half. Game goes to overtime. Alex hits the three to go to double overtime. And then, playing at a facility like Marquette, the atmosphere, a road win. And then they've got a couple of tough road games still to come. To get that out of their first of 3 out of 4 on the road, that was a huge win for Greg and his Blue Jays.
It's always tough to go into Marquette. And I think before I get into Marquette, I want to say how good of a fit that Shaka Smart is at Marquette. The energy, I think he's a better fit for the conference. I'm excited about what Marquette's going to be able to do moving forward. But one of my favorite players, and I didn't even realize he was going to be one of my favorite players, Ryan Hawkins, Division II transfer, good size, holds these guys together. They've got young guards. Ryan Nimbard was terrific. And this was a big Marquette, they showed out early. They showed that they can compete with teams because they're going to play harder than a lot of teams they play against. Probably not as talented as a lot of other teams, but at the same time, because they play so hard, they're going to put themselves in position. I thought Ryan Hawkins was terrific. And what a shot by Alex O'Connell at the end of the first OT. Off the dribble, fading away. I mean, big time shot in the clutch. They just found a way to win. That's what good teams do. And Creighton, slowly but surely, starting to show people that they are that type of team. They are a good team and a tournament team for that matter.
Yeah, Creighton, to me, as you look back at the first month and a half of their season, they've had a pretty tough schedule. They've been involved in a lot of interesting games. They took some losses to teams that at the time, I think you kind of rolled your eyes to. Like they lost at home to Iowa State. And I think everyone sort of took that as a slight against Creighton at the time. But now we come to find out Iowa State's a really, really good team. They lost to Arizona State. That was a weird one, but then they responded with a 20-point win against Villanova. It seems like this team's best is enough to be a factor in the Big East, which I don't think I was prepared for going into this season, at least with all the new faces. They've got a huge freshman class. They've got a nice mix of transfers. I don't really feel like Creighton was on anybody's radar going into the season. Am I wrong on that? Did either of you have expectations of this team to potentially be a tournament team?
Well, I think the one thing about Greg's teams over the years, man, he's found a way, and he's had great consistency at Creighton. He's done a phenomenal job. It's a tough place to win at. Really, really good coach, and he's done a tremendous job there.
I will say this, you got Ryan Hawkins fixing a lot of things offensively and defensively. When you have a rim protector like Ryan Kalkbrenner, who we talked a little bit off air about Walker Kessler, he blocks everything. Kalkbrenner's right there. He might be the best rim protector in the Big East Conference. I think him and it's Ike Obiagu, those two guys in particular, can really fix a lot of issues that you're going to have defensively because they can just take care of the rim. And whenever you have young guards that are still learning rotations and still learning how to stay in front Having that guy behind can fix a lot of problems. They're going to be able to shoot it. AOC can shoot it. Ryan Hawkins can shoot it. They can space the floor. But the fact that they are post heavy with Hawkins and Kalkbrenner, those are their bell cows. It's almost like it goes kind of against what I'm used to watching Creighton play. It's usually fast guards get up, shoot it, individual plays, and they've had good players, but this year they're going about it a little bit differently.
All right, so let's bring in our special guest, the man of the hour himself, head coach Greg McDermott from the Creighton Blue Jays. He should be in here any second. We shall see. All right, we've got Coach Greg McDermott of Creighton off the most exciting game of the weekend and a huge win on the road at Marquette. Coach, thank you so much for being here. And honestly, I got to just start by asking, did you get any sleep last night after that big win?
Yeah, not very much. It might have been an exciting game for you. I'm not sure it was for us, but our guys found a way, and on the road in college basketball, especially in our league, if you can figure out a way to steal one, especially with our young group, you got to be pretty happy.
Yeah, Coach, great win yesterday. Phenomenal resiliency, 2-0 in the league. Can you just talk from a coach's standpoint and a player's standpoint, just the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs of the game? You're up 17 in the second half. You go to overtime. You're down 5 in the first overtime. Alex hits a 3 to send it to double overtime, and you get out of Marquette with the huge road win, because you've got 3 of your next 4 on the road, including this past game against Marquette. Can you just talk about how you keep those guys focused, the resiliency, especially battling that atmosphere at Marquette?
Yes, Steve, I didn't really know what to expect. We were off 15 days, and since we played Villanova. And it's one thing to be on a pause when you have the problems with your team and you can't have guys at practice and you have to shut down because the virus has kind of infiltrated your program. It's a little more challenging when you're healthy and you could play. Like, the frustration level of the guys it's a little different thing mentally to get through. So I really didn't know what to expect, and I was really pleased with the way we started the game and then started the second half. And then I thought that break hit us like a train midway through that second half. I thought we lost a lot of energy and then, gave Marquette some life on their home floor. So it just was a matter of, possession by possession and trying to stay in the moment the best we could. And, they made some good adjustments to what we were doing with our ball screen coverage. And we got out of that and got in the zone. And I think the zone bought us some time and got us back in that game. And, then we get, let's face it, we got a little lucky. Alex made a hell of a play. They switched to the action that we were trying to run, but he was able to get to his right hand and get the shot off. And, it takes a little bit of good fortune in this game as well sometimes.
Yeah, Coach, I got to ask you, Ryan Hawkins is slowly becoming everybody's favorite player. I mean, he transfers in, obviously, Northwest Missouri State. He's really well coached. He comes to you guys. What has he done for your locker room? What has he done for you on the floor? It seems like he's a steadying force for a lot of your young guys.
Yeah, somebody sent a tweet out yesterday about, Coach Don Meyer had the dirty work guys, and there was a list of 9 or 10 things that those guys do on a daily basis, and he pretty much checks every box. And unfortunately with the recruiting during COVID, you don't have an opportunity to get to know kids like you did before. It's a Zoom call or a phone call. And especially when a kid's transferring and leaving a place at Northwest Missouri, where certainly Ben didn't want him to leave. It's not like you have a lot of conversations with the coaching staff there to find out about the kid. You kind of go off what you see. And he's been obviously he's been great on the floor, and the basketball part aside, he's just been a godsend for this young team because of his daily habits, his approach to the game, his enthusiasm and energy that he brings on a daily basis. And he's 24 years old. He's been doing this 6 years at the college level. And he has a way of correcting these younger guys, but not doing it in a demeaning way, in a way that they respect and in a way that they respond to. So his impact is going to be felt here long past his playing days, but he's certainly been really good for us.
I'm going from one Ryan to the other Ryan. Ryan Nembhard's been really good too. I mean, a young point guard, and the point guards in your system, they hold a lot of responsibility because you guys push it initially. He's got to know when to bring it back and find your guys. How good has he been for you? He's one of my favorite freshmen that nobody's really talking about except for Big East fans.
Yeah, he's been terrific. And when you say Ryan around our program, we got like 4 of them. So
I know, right?
We got Kalkbrenner, Hawkins, Nembhard, and then Ryan Miller on my staff. So if I want to get somebody's attention and somebody to listen, I just say the name Ryan, and everybody seems to look at me. But Nembhard's been terrific, and especially Sharif Mitchell's played limited time this year. He was our most experienced returning player, and it appears now that he's going to be out for the year. So the weight that's put on Ryan Nembhard's shoulders has been significant, and he's handled it like a pro. And I just think he's unique in the sense that his dad, they decided to go to Mount Verde, and he went there when he was young, and he didn't get to play a lot, but he was playing against great players every day in practice. As a sophomore, he had a little bit more of a role as a junior off the bench, and then he led the team to the national championship, playing with all those guys, a bunch of lottery picks when he was a senior, and then led the Canadian junior national team to silver medal in Latvia this summer. So he's had a lot of experience playing with really good players, but he fits our system to a T. He's great in transition. He's great in a ball screen. He makes the right read, and obviously he can score the basketball as well. And his leadership qualities are really good to go along with all that. So, we're lucky to have him, and especially with Sharif's injury, he's been really terrific.
Coach, last year, very good team, 22-9 overall. Going into this season, you lose your 5 leading scorers from last year's team. You replace them with a great freshman class and then a mix of some new faces from elsewhere. I think I counted 8 different guys in your rotation that are either freshmen or first-year players. How do you navigate managing that, and how different is this type of roster than those that you've built in the past at Creighton?
I mean, it's different, but it's also refreshing. I mean, it really forced us as a coaching staff. You figure out what's really important, what's really necessary, because as Steve will tell you, part of coaching is relying on those guys that have been in your program, that as they're standing in line, they're correcting those freshmen as the freshmen are about to go. Well, we don't have many of those guys. So we really had to back off in the summertime and keep it pretty simple and decide, okay, what's important to our program? What do we need to get instilled in these guys now? But having said all that, Ryan Hawkins has been, probably exceeded our expectation. Ryan Kalkbrenner's made a huge jump from his freshman to sophomore year. Alex O'Connell's doing exactly what we'd hoped he would do. His plan was to come in, sit out last year, and then when all these guys leave, we have some veteran leadership to stick in there. And the minutes he got last year off the bench, although it was 10 or 11 a game, I think that was important for him, and I think it's helped him this season. So our veterans have really they've had to grow up fast because they're they have a lot of freshmen looking at them on a daily basis. And that freshman class of Rati and Nembhard and Trey Alexander and Arthur Kaluma, they've just been great. There's not a lot of freshmen playing at our level across the country, and we've got 4 of them that are playing every game, and they're doing a heck of a job.
Hey, Coach, obviously you've got great success there at Creighton, and Creighton's got great tradition. And just being up in the Midwest for the last several years, being over to Omaha, the College World Series, the Omaha Zoo, it's a great, great city. Can you just touch on the fan base, how great of an atmosphere it is to play at Creighton, 17, 18, 19,000 every single night, That doesn't happen everywhere in college basketball. And just how great a support you guys have there in Omaha and at Creighton.
Yeah, when I left Iowa State and I came here, and as I was here and learned more about the program, I really felt like we were a Sweet 16 away from everybody finding out what kind of a hidden gem this was. And obviously Dana laid all the groundwork and did an unbelievable job elevating this program and having the success that he had in the Missouri Valley Conference. And, what ended up happening while we made some NCAA tournaments, the move to the Big East told that story for us. And certainly Doug's success his senior year and all the attention that came with that, people found out what a unique place it is. This is a basketball town. We don't have a professional sports team in our state. So obviously Creighton basketball in the wintertime is it. We've had loyal fan support throughout my time here. And even going back to the year after Doug graduated, we started 0-8 in the Big East that year. And we knew it was going to be a rebuild because you found out overnight you were moving from the Valley to the Big East. And all Doug's group all graduated. We're 0-8. We come home and we play Butler on a Tuesday night at 8:15, and we have 18,100 people in the building. And I still get goosebumps when I think about that, because there are a lot of places across the country, blue bloods, you can include them all, that if you start 0-8, people are jumping off the ship. And we have a very educated fan base that understands it, that loves it. And, they understand what we're going through this year with these young guys. And, we've had some pretty good success so far, and hopefully our fan base can keep us going.
Well, as I listen to that story, I, for one, as a fan, I'm thankful that you guys found your way to the Big East, because, and Steve Prohm, please shut your ears on this one. I think you guys are in the best conference in college basketball this season. I think what you're doing at Creighton is a huge part of that. Doesn't get easier for you. I think you go to Villanova next. I can't wait to watch that one. Good luck in that one. Good luck the rest of the season, Coach. Thank you so much for being on here tonight with us.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. And, it is fun to be in a basketball-centric conference where, every decision that's made is how do we make men's and women's basketball better? And that's been refreshing. And obviously, the Big East has done a lot for Creighton. And I'd like to think that we've brought some value to the league as well.
Thanks, Coach, man. Appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks, guys. Great to catch up.
Yeah, I love watching your teams play, Coach.
I appreciate it.
All right, Tio, I've seen you enough on this show over the last few weeks, and I think you've been a trooper. I think you've been a superstar at putting up with this nonsense, but there's been a lot of shade thrown to your conference of choice, which would be the ACC. I think, to quote a certain Rob Doster, I think there was a sentence said on this very show last night that the ACC may be a one-bid league.
That's ridiculous. Stop the nonsense. What are we talking about? There's too much going on right now. And then it is the same Rob Doster last night, Greg, who said everybody sucks. Everybody. Not everybody can suck. Somebody has to be good. It's not one of these things. Like, ACC is going to be fine. Did it have a bad non-con? Of course it did. But we're going to be okay. We're going to be fine. Let's just be clear from the jump.
Yeah, well, somebody has to emerge, right? And that's the question, is who's going to emerge outside of Duke? One team made their case tonight. That would be the North Carolina Tar Heels, fresh off of a blowout victory at Boston College. UNC seems to be the team that nationwide basketball fans agree they're probably the second best in the ACC, but I've heard very varying levels of belief in this Tar Heel team. I think you wouldn't be crazy to say this is a lock NCAA tournament, potential second weekend type team. I don't think you'd be crazy to say one or two things go wrong and this team finds themselves on the bubble. Tio, as the ACC resident in-house expert, where do you stand on the Tar Heels right now?
First of all, those are really strong words. Second of all, Steve, I think you said this in our group chat, 0-3 against teams that are ranked in the top 25. And you know what? I have come off as a Carolina hater previously. Probably rightfully so. But at the same time, those guys are Tarzan until they play other Tarzans, and they turn into Jane real quick. And you saw how that went against Kentucky. Now, look, Boston College, they've had some issues. They haven't been able to practice. I'm not sure about all the particulars, but that's a team that beat Notre Dame. So you almost have to give them a little bit of credit. Of course, Notre Dame isn't great either, but this isn't a Notre Dame part of the show. This is a North Carolina part of the show. They still had to show up and win. And they've shown that whenever they can stay in front of opposing teams' guards, they can be really good because their bigs are really good. Offensively, this team can score. But whenever their guards start getting beaten and beaten consistently, they start to back down in a hurry. And you worry about the mental toughness of their backcourt because they start – I mean, you saw what Severe Wheeler just hurt their feelings, it seemed like, and then they just stopped playing.
Yeah, the one thing about Carolina, and we talked about it a little bit off air, is the big numbers is, they've got to get a big win. I mean, 0-3 against the top 25, Tennessee, Purdue, Kentucky. Obviously, they need Michigan to get it going, so that Michigan win proves to be a big win later in the year. But like Terrence touched on, there's no way the ACC is going to be a 1 or 2 bid league. These Power 5 leagues, I mean, wasn't it last year everybody was talking about the Pac-12, and then they have 2 teams in the Elite 8, 1 team in the Final 4. It's, the Power 5, those to go through the gauntlet of those teams, and you got to go at Duke, at Carolina, home Louisville, at Florida State. We just got off with Greg McDermott. Their 4 games, it's at Marquette, home Providence, at Villanova, at Xavier. Those 4 games, you put 4-game stretches, whether it's the Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC, it is hard, and it is hard to manage, especially, in this landscape with all the COVID and all the uncertainty. And so, maybe it's a year they only get 3 to 5 teams in, but I can't see them being a 1 or 2 bid league. But it's kind of like certain leagues need certain teams to be good. Carolina and Duke got to be elite in the ACC, and then everybody else, Florida State's been so good of recent time. They need to be back to where, Louisville, those teams, so the league gets a little bit more credit top to bottom. But, a lot of preseason talk on Virginia Tech. They've got to get going. But Carolina, the one thing when you look at the numbers today, they shot it well, which is a thing in the preseason. People were talking about how well is Carolina going to shoot it. I think through Baycott, Love, Manick, RJ Davis, they really stepped up and played today, and Garcia went out. And then the other thing, they only gave up 20 points in the first half. And I don't care in Division I basketball at the Power 5 level, you're only giving up 20 points in the first half. You're playing some defense. And that's one of the things Carolina, we were on them with a couple weeks ago.
I believe in this North Carolina team. To your guys' point, in the biggest moments, they've sort of put their tail between their legs and ran in the other direction to me, which maybe that says more about their toughness than anything else, but I do believe in the talent. I believe in the skill. I think Caleb Love has shocked me how efficient he's been this season. I was a very anti Caleb Love person heading into the season. I just didn't think he was ever going to be able to be a high quality scorer on a good team. Thought he was going to be a good stats, bad team guy or a role player on a really good team, but he's 43% from the floor. He's 82% from free throw, 41% from 3. He's their second leading scorer. I think I'm buying into the fact that Caleb Love could be the best backcourt guy on a team that has some success in March. To your point though, T.O., I don't know that we're going to get any opportunity to see this team be anything other than the Tarzan that beats up on Janes, because they've already missed those opportunities, right? Unless you consider Michigan that one big resume booster for them. But right now, Michigan doesn't look like that at all. But do you think that bodes well for them in ACC regular conference play, though? Like if they are the team that rises to the challenge and beats their chest when they go up against someone who's not their size, I don't know that there's many teams their size in this conference.
Confidence is certainly a big player when it comes to college kids, and Carolina could play their way to 16 wins in this league the way it's going. I mean, you got to keep in mind too, Carolina is much more talented than a lot of teams in the conference. And that's not saying something crazy or demeaning to anybody else or any other team in the conference. It's just the fact that you're at Carolina, you're going to get better players a lot of times than others are. It's just, they're kind of like the school bully at this point. They get punched in the mouth. okay, he's going to shut up and he's going to go back to his corner. That's what Carolina is right now. They're the school bully. If they get hit back, there's not a whole lot of fight left to give. That's kind of what everybody's worried about right now. And quite frankly, guys, that's what we've seen. Purdue punches them in the mouth, they're gone. Kentucky punched them in the mouth twice, and they went home. They didn't even go back to their seat. They went home. Like it was just – I'm curious to see how, besides Duke, who's going to be the team that gives them that opportunity.
Well, those 3 losses, like you touched on, they were beat soundly in those 3 games. And when you look ahead at their schedule, if you just take their next 5 games, at Notre Dame, home Virginia, home Georgia Tech, at Miami, who's won 8 out of 9, at Wake Forest, which had got off to a great start, but dropped their first 2 ACC games. And the next 5 games, what's a top 25, top 50, NET, Ken Palm, AP top 25 coaches poll win that's ahead of them over the next 3 weeks. And, that'll take us almost to late January, where maybe they don't have a quality win. But that doesn't, if you go 15-3, 16-2, 14-4 in the ACC, you are a legit basketball team.
And by the time it's all said and done too, Coach, like their confidence is going to be sky high. They're going to win 15, 16 games in the conference. They're going to go into the tournament. They could be a second weekend team because they can overwhelm you. It's just a matter of if they feel like guarding or not. That's what it's come down to for North Carolina.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see it play out. I think this team's clearly 2 in the ACC. Do they have the ceiling of jumping up and being 1B at some point? Maybe that depends on how they fare in those games against Duke. I doubt it, but I still think, a very solid resume at the end of the year. If you go, whatever it is, 16-4, 15-5 in ACC play, beat all the teams that aren't ranked teams, they're going to be sitting pretty and potentially still get a 4 or 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. They've got the talent to do whatever they can from there. We'll see how it plays out. Let's move to the Big Ten, though. My favorite conference. We've spent enough time talking about TOs. Let's talk about the Spartans, who, quite frankly, folks, yes, I'm a Michigan State person here. Yes, I host Unscripted with the Field of 68. We don't talk enough about the Spartans on the Field of 68 after dark. I don't know that I've even seen a Michigan State segment this year. So what better time than today, as the first place in the Big Ten, Michigan State Spartans got a big road win, a come-from-behind road win against a sneaky good Northwestern team, 3-0 in Big Ten play. I think there's a little bit, if I'm going to be completely honest, because, again, I got to be objective here, there's a little bit of that UNC bully syndrome with Michigan State. They're 0-2 in their big games this year, both against top 5 opponents, Baylor and Kansas. I would argue both of those games were competitive for a half, and then they weren't in the second half. Now, I don't think there's many teams in the country who can play 40 minutes of competitive basketball with Baylor and Kansas. And Michigan State's taken care of business everywhere else. They've been tested with UConn, Loyola Chicago, now 3-0 in the Big Ten. Fellas, let's go to you first, Coach. Are you buying Michigan State as a true contender in the Big Ten this season?
Yeah, I'm buying Michigan State for sure. I'm always buying a Tom Izzo team just because of what he's about, what he stands for, how they compete. Obviously aggressive in transition. They're going to compete on the glass. They went in the halftime down, I think 7, on the road. And this is a big game for Northwestern. They had a tough loss to Providence in the Garden or in the Barclays Center up there in early in the preseason. And they lost a close game at Wake. They probably should have let one slip away. And so it's a great opportunity for Northwestern to get to 2-0 in the league. And Michigan State put their hard hats on in the second half and really dominated the second half and finished the game out. But, man, they're old. They've got 5 of their top 6 guys are juniors and seniors. They know how to win. They play 9 guys, extended minutes, 10-plus minutes. We talked a couple weeks ago about, Purdue or the field. The reason it's hard not to take the field is because Michigan State's sitting out there. Illinois is sitting out there, teams that are really starting to gear up and play well. And, obviously losing to Baylor and Kansas, that's nothing to feel bad about. You learn from those games, you get better. And, that's what Izzo teams are always going to do. And I'm buying them. They've got a great stretch here. Their next 3 out of 4 are home games where they probably feel confident. If you are a betting man or just making picks, you're going to take them. And then they got a big road test at Michigan, that they need to try to take care of business and get that one.
I'm all for it until you start talking to me about Purdue playing them. Because I feel like what Michigan State's really, really good at is what Purdue can overwhelm them at. And that's on the boards with their size. That's with Jaden Ivey, who's going to out-athlete them. I will say this, though. We were at the beginning of the year and went to the Champions Classic. And it was going to take Michigan State some time. Tyson Walker needed to adjust. A.J. Hogard needed to adjust. Both of those guys now have a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. They've been really good for them. And then on top of that, Max Christie, he needed to figure out this college game. When we talked to Max, he's going to talk about it a little bit here later on. But he needed to figure out the college game. Look, losing to Baylor, losing to Kansas, nobody's going to fault you there. They've taken care of business against teams they've needed to take care of business on. I think they're mentally tough. I love Hall. Gabe Brown, I thought was going to be an explosive. I thought he was going to have a big year for them this year because I thought he shot it really well and he had good length and he just kind of did all the right stuff without really having a big scoring year. He's averaging double figures now. Like, this is a team that can, or close. What is he averaging? You should know this, Greg.
Oh, boy, off the top of my head. I bet he's averaging 12.
So he's averaging double figures. Like, it's a bunch of guys. I probably should have that.
14.2, even better.
Yeah, I should have that in front of me. Unprofessional. If I'm going to start bringing up stats, I better have it ready to go, coach. You know what I'm saying? But I like their team. I like their pieces. I like Marcus Bingham Jr. I think he's a guy that has been, if potential turns into production, watch out. And he has played well. He's a rangy defender. I think he does a nice job, and he provides a little bit of inside-out stuff for him. I like the team. I like the makeup. I just worry when they play Purdue. I love Purdue.
Yeah, and this is the type of team going back all of Tom Izzo's career, quite frankly, that when he has a team that's maybe a little slept on relative to some of his better teams in the preseason, he typically outperforms expectations every single time. Mm-hmm. And I think you're seeing that with this group. To me, this is one of the groups that is so clearly a bigger sum of the individual parts. Because here's my thing, even as someone who wants to talk and watch Michigan State basketball, my thing with this team is, do they have a true alpha? And I think Gabe Brown has become that. He's their leading scorer. He's hunting shots. He's putting up 7-8 threes a game, and he can just rise and shoot over anybody on the wing. I think Max Christie has the potential to become that. And like you said, Tio, he's getting a lot more comfortable. But this team still has too many times where their key guys are very off. Like Malik Hall, I swear his basketball performance on the court is bipolar. He's either their best player or he's a total non-factor. Tyson Walker tonight had 0 points, 0 for 5 from the field, I think 1 assist. It's just really tough to win with. Now, the thing that's helped them so far is that they have enough depth and enough guys that even when their 2 or 3 key guys are playing poorly, they've been able to survive and sustain that. And that's what happened in the second half. Now, I got to ask you, Coach, is that a blessing in disguise, or is that something that's going to come back to bite them, that they don't truly have like a clear-cut NBA guy who can go get them a bucket in March?
You know, the one thing I look at, and we were joking, Terrence was joking about not having the numbers in front of him. I went down, know we were going to talk about Michigan State and just look at their, points production. They've got 7 guys that is averaging more than 7 points a game, 4 that's almost double figures. And so if you ever coached a team, when I was an assistant, I think 2009-10, we had a really good team, Murray State. We had 6 guys average 10 points or more. And we ended up winning a game in NCAA tournament, lost to Butler in a really good game to go to the Sweet 16. But it's very hard to take away your best player because you have so many other options of guys that can step up. And like you're touching on, Walker didn't play well, or, maybe Christie didn't play well, just throwing different guys' names out there. You have 3, 4, 5 other guys, even Akins. I've cited Michigan State play, and we were texting about him off air a little bit. He'll make some tough plays for him and bring some juice for the team. And so I think, I think it helps you. I think it helps you because they're more diverse. It's tougher to scout. It's tougher to prepare for because their depth is really good.
Hey, what about at the end of games, Coach? I got to ask you this. You've had some really, really good players that you've coached over the years. Like, would you rather have 4 or 5 guys that could potentially get you, or would you rather have the dude?
Well, you like to have the dude when you have the 4 or 5. They're all, some are like, man, if they don't make, if that one guy doesn't make it, the other guys maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you call it for them, you better hope they make it. And so, but I think if you've been around the good teams that understand, selfless basketball, the right way to play, they understand, that why you went to that person in that certain moment. But it is good to have a guy, obviously both inside, outside. If you can say, hey, we need something outside, or we need something inside, or we need a paint touch, somebody get to the free throw line, something we know we're going to get a surefire opportunity here. It's no question good to have that and be able to throw that ball to that person. But I do like Michigan State's, I do like their depth. I do like their toughness. And like you said, I think when you doubt Tom Izzo, I think that's just when he's at his best. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer for a reason.
So T.O. and I had a chance to sit down and talk with the guy who I think could be the dude for Michigan State as we get into March. That would be Max Christie. He's a great interview. I wasn't expecting that. I got to be honest. I've seen him on the court. I really hadn't seen him in front of a microphone. He's just as good there. Let's get to our interview with Max Christie. All right, we are pleased to have Max Christie, Michigan State freshman star, with us. Max is coming off a big game in a road win, a bit of a homecoming win for him. Chicago kid. His mom was a 1,000-point scorer at Northwestern. Max, what was that like being in that environment with the family ties and then coming out with a victory?
Yeah, it felt great, honestly. It was one of the games I was looking forward to a lot, just coming into Northwestern, because, I grew up in this program almost. My mom played here. I've been a ball boy for Northwestern, even when they played Michigan State back in the day. So I've been around that program for a while. And it felt really good just to come in and sort of, like you said, a homecoming game and just, play my game, do what I did, 10 points, 7 rebounds, and most importantly, get a win. So it felt good to be there for sure.
Man, that's big time. Max, I actually got a chance to watch you play in person at Madison Square Garden, and you could see your talent. You just ooze with talent and potential. I think Greg will vouch for that. Greg's a big Michigan State guy.
Oh, yeah.
But I will say this, man, it's like you're starting to come together and figure it out. And I got to ask you a little bit, this freshman adjustment, it's a real thing, right? And what has been the hardest part about it for you?
I think one of the biggest adjustments that I've made so far is, and I think everybody's seen it, is just my shot, sort of. It's not even a bad thing, to be honest, but the ability is different in college. I think I'm making that transition, sort of. It just happens to everybody. I mean, I had that little slump I was in before, and then I had a good breakout game against Oakland, and now this game was a little bit better, I think, than my old games when I was in a slump. So I think it's good to just go through that transition now. I think it was normal. I think it's normal. It's not something that I'm not familiar with. I've gone through something like this before when transitioning, but I think that's one of the biggest transitions I'm learning right now is just, sticking with it, staying confident in my jump shot, even though sometimes it may not fall. It's just an adjustment to make because, college is a lot different than high school, all these closeouts, quick closeouts, these reads, and the scouts that teams are playing against me. So it's just an adjustment for sure. But I think the more games that I've been playing and the more games I will play, I'm going to get better. My shots are going to fall. I'm still going to be confident regardless. So
I love that. Game's starting to slow down a little bit for you. And then,
certainly, yeah.
Yeah. And then I got to ask you this, because Coach Izzo has a truly unique relationship with his players. The players go back and forth a lot. He lets you explain yourself. I got to hear a little bit how that's been for you as far as learning from somebody as legendary as Coach Izzo and transitioning from high school to playing for somebody like that that's so intimately involved with his players. I got to hear more about that because you guys go back and forth.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, I don't do as much, to be honest. I sort of just listen, when I feel like I may be right or he may have a mistake, I do give my, my 2 cents every now and then, but it's not in a disrespectful manner at all.
Yeah.
Because he has that relationship with his players. And so I think for me, mostly, I sort of just listen to him. I don't necessarily say much, even if he may be wrong in the moment, in my opinion. Most of the time he's right. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame coach. And so if it really comes down to the fact where I really think he's wrong, I'll talk to him after the game about it. But I don't necessarily jar with him at all. I think we have a good relationship. I know he knows what he's talking about. Obviously, he's won a national championship. He knows what it's like. He knows what it takes. And so I make sure that, I keep myself cool in those situations because he knows what he's talking about. He's definitely more knowledgeable in the game of basketball than I am.
So you guys are sitting here 3-0 in the Big Ten, alone in first place in the conference. Not to look too far ahead because you got a home game Wednesday night, but there's a big one coming up. Your first time in the rivalry game in Ann Arbor on Saturday next weekend. Have the guys told you what to expect from that rivalry game?
Oh yeah, we talk about it all the time. That's our arch nemesis, our arch rival. And so we're going into enemy territory, real enemy territory. And so we're excited for that game. But like you said, we're not looking past Nebraska whatsoever. And so I'm excited for that game. That's, I think, 6 days, a week almost from now. And so that game's going to be fun. My first game, getting into that rivalry. But we're looking forward to Nebraska first. And after that game, we'll look to Michigan for sure.
Hey, I got two questions for you. First of all, and I'm kind of coming up impromptu on this one, so you're going to have to forgive me, Greg, but having guys like Malik on the team, having guys like Gabe on the team, you step right into the starting lineup and they just brought you right in and accepted you right away. That's got to be significant. And what have they been able to share with you that's made it a special experience? Because you guys are playing well.
Yeah, well, both of them are captains for good reason. Both Leak and Gabe did a really good job and have done a really good job of welcoming me in to, that starting role and helping me adjust to college and encouraging me, making sure that even though when I make a mistake, I miss a jump shot, I turn the ball over, miss a free throw, whatnot, they're still there for me all the time. They're always making sure that I'm comfortable and confident. And they've done a great job of that, even with that, just not even me, regardless of myself, the whole team. They've done a great job stepping into that leadership role as captains, making sure that the team is on track to do what we want to do, which is win a national championship, Big Ten championship, go to the Final Four. And so they've done a great job of that so far. And, all the players look to them for guidance because they've been here, they're veterans and they're captains. And so they do their job really well.
All right. And I got one more. So I'm sitting down to eat and I turn on my phone because that's how I'm keeping up with everything. And the next thing I know, somebody shoots a three from the the left 45, and my man Max Christie comes out of nowhere and throws it down. Where do you rank on the Spartan team if there was a dunk contest? Like, who's taking that? Are you up there? I just got to hear that one.
If I'm being honest, I think people do sleep on my dunking ability because I don't do it very often. I don't do it very often, which it partially is my fault. I don't do it very often. But if we had a dunk contest, I don't know if Gabe's up there, Jaden's up there, Mark's up there. Maybe top 5, maybe. But I don't dunk very often. I haven't shown my dunk package at all, to be honest. And so I don't do it very often, but I think I'd be top 5 probably.
I think you started to show it today. And look, I'm starting to get used to those Jaden Akins tip slams. So I had to do a double take that it wasn't him. And actually it was Max Christie who came through with it. So I don't think anyone's going to sleep on your dunking ability anymore. I've got one more for you. T.O. told you I'm a East Lansing guy, Michigan State graduate. After a big win like that on the road, you get home. Where are you going in East Lansing? What's the spot? What's the spot tonight? Or just in general. Where's your go-to place after a victory?
One of the places I like the most is Barrios. It's a new taco place that just opened up, I think, this year or last year. It's really good. And so if we have time tonight, I'll definitely go stop by there and see if I can get a nice little taco, So we'll see how that goes.
That's how I know I'm getting old because I don't recognize that one. I'm only like 6-7 years removed, but man.
It's a new one.
Well, enjoy, Max. It's a pleasure watching you. Good luck the rest of the season, and congrats again on the victory today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
So Max Christie, I'm someone who sees the Spartan fan base and has sort of followed his journey from high school to where he is now. And when I tell you the Spartan fan base was excited about this kid, that's an understatement. I think expectations for this kid were extremely high. We were like, oh my gosh, especially when you see Tom Izzo, give him the ball, his very first game, college debut. He led the team in minutes. And that was a wake-up call for every Spartan fan in the country of like, oh my gosh, we got something here. Now, I think there's also people who would look at Max Christie's stats and just do a quick Google search and say, this guy was a projected lottery pick at one point. And I think that is a tough thing to balance with a first-year player. And it's really hard to not or to take some of that out of context when you just look at some of those percentages. Coach, you've had stars, you've had star freshmen. How do you deal with that and the public perception midseason?
Well, I think you got to make sure they know they got to all run their own race. And that's a big thing I like to say all the time. You know, he can't compare himself to any other freshman. He can't compare himself to any guys that are one and done or other kids that played at Michigan State or other guys that played his position. He needs to run Max Christie's race. And with his skill level and his ability, if he does that with the guy that he has coaching him, that's the great thing about him going to Michigan State. He's going to be held accountable. He's going to be coached hard. He's going to be challenged each and every day, and he's not going to be able to slide by, and everything's going to be, you know, on the up and up, and he's going to be held accountable, and he's going to be pushed to another level. And so I think the biggest thing is you got to let those guys play through some mistakes in order to continue to gain confidence. You look at some of his numbers right now, he's almost averaging double figures, you know, as a freshman in the Big Ten, playing the schedule that they played, Baylor, Kansas, 3 Big Ten teams, you know, already. And I'm probably missing 1 or 2 games. It is, you know, his percentages from 3 in the field right now, you know, are not terrific. They're just solid, you know, at best. But that's just going to come with time. Him getting stronger, him getting more mature, and him getting more game reps. And, you know, he's got a high ceiling, and, you know, he doesn't want to peak right now. He wants to continue to grow and get better, and he's in a great situation to do that.
Another thing too is I think to go along with run your own race, I think we get caught up in these rankings sometimes, and you see him, he's the #1 shooting guard in the country. That's because of tools. And it's not necessarily a finished product. A lot of these ranking systems that everybody's putting out, they're putting it out based on pro potential. This kid has that. But at the same time, you got to let a freshman be a freshman. His body's probably not quite ready for Big Ten play. Let's just be honest. That's a rugged league. You're getting bumped on every cut. It's a bunch of strong old guys in that league, guys. Like, that's a strong league. And his shot and his percentages have been reflective of that because he's been knocked off his spots quite a bit. I think with time, this kid's going to be really good. I hope he stays another year because I think kids jump out too early now because for obvious reasons, it's a lot of money, guys. It's life-changing money in the NBA now. It's kind of absurd how much money these guys are making. But at the same time, if he puts it off for a year, his sophomore season could be really, really good because the tools and the skill are there. His body needs to catch up. He's got the length. He's got the athleticism. You saw with that tip dunk. That tip dunk was pretty special. He got up there and threw it down quick. It's just some guys need more time, and I think he's a good example of that. The potential's still there, but the body needs to catch up a little bit.
And he spoke to us about getting comfortable. And to me, that's what I feel like I've seen in his latest games. You know, it's easy to nitpick and look at specific games of the season, be like, oh, he didn't have it tonight. Oh, he's feasting upon some lesser competition type teams. But look, when the going was tough for Michigan State today, they were turning to Max Christie. They were dialing some things up for Max Christie. He hit a couple really big buckets in that second half at critical times. And I think you're only going to see that continue to blossom as they get into the thick of Big Ten play. All right, this was a big week. Oh, go ahead, Coach.
I just say one other thing that just shows his character is, you know, when kids, and Terrence knows this, when you go back home and you're playing in front of you, kind of your home area, you can force things, you can get frustrated, you can struggle at times. You know, for him to make big plays in big moments and not force things and play within Tom's system says a lot about Max.
You can also look at Michigan across the street too, not literally across the street, but like Caleb Houston struggled. I mean, freshmen are going to be freshmen, especially guys that rely on their perimeter jump shot because they're not used to being bumped and scouted like they usually are, unless they're just insane like I was and just shot every time they touched it anyway. And I didn't really think about it. These guys are smarter than me and they're better players. So like what ends up happening is they get pushed off their spots and they're not used to being as physical up because they're so much bigger than everybody in high school. It's a big adjustment to play in these power conference leagues with that size. I can't emphasize that enough. It's tough.
Yeah, a little bit tougher to maybe play in those environments than to sit behind a phone and tweet about how guys aren't playing very well, T.O.
There you go. It's hard.
Yeah, there you go. Here, you heard it from the man himself.
So you weren't better than Max Christie.
At what?
Nah, just kidding.
Podcasts? The answer is no. 3-point percentages were better. That's it. That's where that line ends. Right then and there.
If I go to YouTube and search Terrence Oglesby tip slam, what's going to turn up for me, T.O.?
Hey, but let's not get into details right now. Let's not lose our train of thought here.
All right. We'll move on.
50% career dunker. We got to move on. Surprises of the week are next.
Yeah, we can move on. We can move on. All right. Let's look back at the week that was, because during a holiday week, there was surprisingly some good basketball played. There were definitely some surprises that happened. Let's go around the horn. Everybody give me one thing that surprised you this week. T.O., let's go to you first.
I feel like I'm jumping on the Goodman train and I'm being a little negative. But Arkansas losing 3 out of their last 4. I thought that was a team that was going to, the must bus was full of diesel. It was ready to go. And they started out really strong against probably, I'm just going to say, mediocre competition. People were complaining, hey, this isn't a top 25 team. Well, got to play somebody. They do play some people and they lose to Oklahoma, lose to Hofstra, end up beating Elon, and then go down to Mississippi State and get whipped. So you gotta figure out. I'm a little disappointed because I was a big Chris Likes fan. I thought there wasn't a more entertaining player in the Atlantic Coast Conference last year than him when he was healthy, or 2 years ago. He didn't play last year. Like, that was a team that has pieces. I wonder how long it's going to take them to get back. That's been surprising for me because over their last 3 or 4 games, Arkansas hasn't found a way to get out of their own way.
So are you buying or selling stock of Arkansas at this point?
I don't know that. I might be buying because the stock is so low right now. So like I might be buying.
I think that's fair. I'm buying, for the record. I hear it. It's been a debacle. I think everything you just said is correct, but maybe I'm not on the bus anymore, but I'm holding out for dear life. That's how I feel with Muss right now. I still believe in that team's talent. We'll see what happens, but I'll buy. If we're going to say it's low, I'll buy right now. Coach, who do you got for surprise of the week?
Surprise of the week, go down south to Tulane, the Green Wave. You know, they lose 4 out of 5. They missed their last 3 games because of COVID situations, whether it was within their program or their other teams' programs. They're 3-6 open in American play. They beat Memphis at home, and then they go on the road and beat Cincinnati. A huge week for Ron Hunter and his team to start league play 2-0 for the Green Wave.
Yeah, and that Cincinnati game, I mean, that was over about 10 minutes in. And I was curious after the Memphis win, that could be a little bit of a letdown spot. Cincinnati, a tough team to play. No, they came out firing. They kept that momentum rolling. I think that's a really good pick. My surprise of the week, I can't believe I'm even discussing this team at all, but I genuinely was so surprised that they got a victory. I feel obligated to acknowledge it. Virginia beating Syracuse at Syracuse in a game where during the stretch run of that game, Virginia scored 5 consecutive times from the field. And Buddy Boeheim, give him credit, was doing his Buddy Boeheim thing. He was throwing in some Hail Marys, some late shot clock heaves that were going down. And Virginia answered offensively. And I quite frankly didn't think this team was capable of that. I've been very critical of Kihei Clark. I've been very critical of Armand Franklin. And those guys stepped up and they shot the ball well. They made some key ones down the stretch. A Virginia team that I am very low on took a small step up for me.
Let me just
Tony's teams are always going to get better.
Yeah.
They're going to get better throughout the year.
Yeah. To kind of go on what you said, Syracuse is going to win a lot of games they're not supposed to. They're going to lose a lot of games they're not supposed to. So because that zone, you give Tony Bennett some time to figure it out. I mean, Tony Bennett's going to figure it out. I think that's important. And that's also why I think they do so well in the tournament, because you only have a day to prepare for all that length in that zone. It's tough.
It was a tale of 2 games too, when they could put Gardner in the middle against that zone. I mean, it was easy bucket after easy bucket, just turn around, natural fallaways. When they had to put Reese Beekman in there, things got a little dicey. So credit to Gardner, credit to Tony Bennett and the Cavs for figuring that one out. Let's move on to stars of the week. Same thing, round the horn. Give me your star of last week. Coach, we'll start with you this time.
Can I give you one team and one coach? Is that okay? A team. I'm not going to give an individual player. I'm just going to give the team, the Providence Friars team. You beat Seton Hall in a tough game at home, and then you go on the road to DePaul and you just handle your business. And when you're a legit team, Terrence knows, when you're legit and you're about it and you're a championship level team, you don't screw around. You go on the road and you dominate games you're supposed to dominate. And they went in there and handled their business, 13-1. Phenomenal job and phenomenal start to Ed Cooley's teams. And then Brock Morris, filling in for Bob Marlin, Louisiana Lafayette, Bob Marlin has had COVID protocol, had to sit out. All-time Sun Belt wins leader, at ULL. Brock Morris takes his team in. The ULL Lafayette team wins at App State, wins at Coastal Carolina, and 2 huge wins to start conference play for Lafayette.
First of all, I'm thrilled that you gave Providence their flowers, because I'm pretty sure we had some death threats after yesterday, because Goodman called them the luckiest team in the country last night. He said there's no team luckier than Providence. He said it was they played Seton Hall without Iko Biagu. They played Wisconsin without Johnny Davis. They've just run into good thing after good thing, and then they played DePaul. DePaul's not playing well. So there you go. My star of the week, I only had one. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to Dan Earl, VMI at Wofford, gets a win. Yeah. Plays Furman at home, gets a win. That's 2 teams probably in the top 3 of the SoCon. He's done a tremendous job. And you look at some of these military schools, it's hard to recruit to those places. So you have to get really creative. He's got a young man named Jake Stevens, 6'10" center, who's really, really good. He runs a lot of offense through him. It's a lot of fun to watch. They're a lot of fun to watch, and they fly, and they score a lot of points. My star of the week, who else? Walker Kessler, Auburn. They said he had, 14, 9, and 11 blocks. And then Bruce Pearl, being Bruce Pearl, decided to give one of the team rebounds to him. And so in the official book, he has 14, 10, and 11. So good for him. Coach Prohm, I don't think you would have done that. You wouldn't have done that. There's no chance.
If I could have got one of them point guards a triple-double, I'd have thrown him an extra assist.
There you go. But he gave him one of the team rebounds later. So good for him. Good for Bruce Pearl. Good for Walker Kessler. We talked about him a little bit off air. One of the best in the country at not only help side blocks, but chase down blocks. That guy's length and ability to catch up with dribble penetration, second to none in the country.
Yeah, I'm watching some defensive edits. Watching Auburn the last 2 nights, I was watching some of their defensive edits. He blocks everything. I mean, I'm watching the LSU, replay and just watching Auburn's defense. He blocks everything around the rim. Length, size. Auburn is tough on defense.
Yeah, we talk about front courts, and that's kind of driving the narrative of the best teams in college basketball. Auburn's right up there, man. I don't feel like they get mentioned necessarily as much as the Gonzaga, the Purdue front courts. It might be time to start considering that Jabari Smith, Walker Kessler front court, the best of the best in the country. I got 2 players for my 2 stars of the week. 2 players that I believe only had 1 victory each this week. Actually, I think Marcus Carr may have had 2. Marcus Carr is my first star of the week. Chris Beard rolls out mimosas for everybody, for all the Texas fans. And apparently it turns out all Texas fans needed to view Marcus Carr in a different light was a mimosa, because Marcus Carr had his best game of the season as far as I'm concerned. 20 points, 4 rebounds, I believe 2 assists. He was all over the place. And if they get that Marcus Carr, this Texas team's ceiling goes back to where I thought it would be preseason. Now, the Texas that I've seen has not had a very good or a very engaged Marcus Carr this season. So I'm curious if this is going to be something that sticks. I am a Marcus Carr believer. Again, I'm a Big Ten guy. I've seen him just single-handedly will Minnesota teams to games they shouldn't have been in. I was very excited to see him in a Texas program with a coach who knows a lot about winning. And it was good to see him get on the right track right here. My second one
for him too, because he played at Pitt before. And so he's got a little ACC in him. So,
yeah, he was on that 0-18 team with Kevin Stallings, I think. But they were starting like 4 freshmen, I think, at that point. But you could see he had talent. I will say this: when he was playing, he was assertive. He was getting into the paint. He was pitching out. I mean, he did a nice job. He looked more comfortable being Marcus Carr that game. Does that make sense? He wasn't looking over his shoulder to make sure he was making the right play. He looked more comfortable being himself, and as a result, it played well.
I think Chris's teams too get better offensively throughout the year. I think those guys understand more what he wants. I think they feel more comfortable in his system, gives a little bit more freedom as the season progresses. And I think you've seen it with some guys that he's had with the past teams that made the runs late, man, they got better offensively because they're always going to have their juggernaut defense. But when they start becoming a very good offensive team, that's when they take off. But Beard and the Mimosas, I didn't know that. That's great, man. He's always got something going.
Oh, man, $10, a basketball game and a mimosa. What else could you want? You got to love it. I'm glad, fellas, we only have 1 minute left for my second star of the week. And if my Sleepers Media co-host is listening to this somewhere, plug your ears, Carter Elliott. My second star of the week was Colin Gillespie. That Villanova win down the stretch against a Seton Hall team who was missing some key guys. But man, that Seton Hall team is tough as nails. I just continue to be so impressed with how those guys just stick in any game. It doesn't matter who can suit up for them or who can't, who they're playing. They're going to be a tough out. They responded every time Villanova had a chance to pull away. It was like a 9-point lead. They'd cut it right back to 2. And then it'd be a 6-point lead. They'd tie it up. And I just kept thinking, man, my Gillespie agenda has a big opportunity here. He might just shy away from the big moment. Instead, he hit a couple big shots. He took care of the ball. He was really tough defensively on the Seton Hall guards. And in fact, I think he checked out with about a 7-point lead with about 3 minutes left. And Jay Wright put him on the bench with 4 fouls. And when he checked back into the game, it was a tie game with about 1 minute left. And he made some key plays down the stretch, took care of it, got his team to the free throw line. So Colin Gillespie, kudos. I have good words to say about you for maybe the first time this season. And I feel weird saying that. T.O., I know you've heard my agenda with that before. This feels a little icky to end like that, but what can I do?
Hey, a healthy Seton Hall squad beats Villanova. Let's just be clear.
Wow.
I love that Seton Hall team, man. I love that. See, they're so tough. Willard has them playing so hard, and they've got scoring, and Jared Rhoden's a pro. Like it's a good team. Good team. Especially Ike Obiagu not being there. Him and Kalkbrenner from Creighton, probably the best 2 rim protectors in that league. Like
that league is good. The league is terrific. But Villanova 2-1 in that Big East, slowly getting back where they're supposed to be.
They have that mental edge. They have that, and I compared it to when Paulus and Shire were playing. Like, weren't the most overwhelming team, but at the same time, mentally, they just expected to win, so they would in turn make winning plays all the time, consistently. Villanova has that this year.
Yeah, Villanova's back to doing Villanova things, and the Field of 68 is going to continue to do the Field of 68 things. We'll have After Dark shows all week again. For Terrence Oglesby, for Steve Prohm, I am Greg Waddell. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys later this week.